Let's be honest, it was a terrible night last night. It was a terrible night for women, for children, for the hundreds of thousands of hardworking immigrants who make this country go.
Yeah, they're continuing to sob all over the place. It's weird. These are grown men who were just weeping, crying on national television because Donald Trump won the presidency. And we begin with late night comedian Jimmy Kimmel. Now, he's got a late night comedy show. It's in the style of Johnny Carson, David Letterman, Conan O'Brien, but that's where the similarities end. They've got a set, they've got a couch, they've got a desk, they've got a band, and they have what they call an opening monologue. But if you tuned in to funny guy Jimmy Kimmel last night, it was not really a stand-up routine. It wasn't an opening monologue. It was a struggle session. It was group therapy, because they've turned their shows not into something entertaining and fun and funny. They've turned it into political activism. And, you know, when the American people decide that they're not going to vote the way you tell them to vote, well, you've got nothing else to say except to cry with your audience. Jimmy Kimmel. This is sad. Pull out your hankies. Here we go.
Let's be honest, it was a terrible night last night. It was a terrible night for women, for children, for the hundreds of thousands of hardworking immigrants who make this country go. For healthcare, for our climate, for science, for journalism, for justice, for free speech. It was a terrible night for poor people, for the middle class, for seniors who rely on Social Security, for our allies in Ukraine, for NATO, for the truth and democracy and decency. It was a terrible night for everyone who voted against him. And guess what? It was a bad night for everyone who voted for him, too. You just don't realize it yet.
Wow. I mean, that last line, by the way, sums it up perfectly. You all are so stupid, you don't even realize how bad things are because you voted for this guy. My favorite one in there, if you missed it, was a horrible night for democracy. It was literally the democratic process. So the American people finally got to have their say after 4 years of this disaster. The American people show up, they vote in overwhelming fashion, and that makes it a bad night for democracy. Yesterday, I felt bad about laughing at all the rando women who were struggling on TikTok because, like I said yesterday, you know, there's somebody's daughter. But this guy is nobody's daughter. And he gets paid millions of dollars to do what he just did there. And that was just pathetic. Oh, with the tears in the eyes and choking up and the voice cracking because of Ukraine. It's funny. Have you ever heard him crying over the plight of people who live in Detroit or Baltimore or in any other city in this country that has been ravaged by crime and murder and rape and gang warfare and illegal immigrant criminals who have come into this country unvetted, 13 million of whom are known and convicted murderers that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris just said, oh, that's fine. We welcome murderers from everywhere. Come on in. In fact, we'll give you free benefits to go and live in a community and wreak havoc on them. Jimmy Kimmel never finds it in himself to get choked up and cry about the people who are victims of his politics. But boy, he can lose it right there in front of you as the alpha beta he is. That's right. He's an alpha beta. That means the top beta around. He can lose it right there for Ukraine. This is awful. I feel bad for the people of Ukraine, but you know what? He's not worried about the people of Ukraine. He's worried about the president of Ukraine who likes to come and, you know, chum around with him. And he's sad about the military in Ukraine not getting more billions of dollars worth of stuff. You know what I'm sad about Ukraine? I'm sad that they've had a war for this long and nobody's actually ever made an effort to bring about peace. If you really care about Ukraine, you should be actually hopeful that there's now a path toward peace so that the murder and the rape stops. But that's what made Jimmy Kimmel cry yesterday. Because he, like all of his counterparts, believe that their job is no longer to make you laugh or to entertain you. Their job is to tell you what you should think and what you should believe, and yes, how you should vote. And at no point does Jimmy Kimmel stand up there and say, oh gosh, maybe I've lost some credibility with my audience. Or maybe I've just spent every night preaching to the choir about the same old thing. It would have been really refreshing if he came out last night and started his show by saying, "Listen, you know where I am politically. I haven't made it a secret. And I'm sure you all believe me. Otherwise, you probably wouldn't be here watching, either in the audience or at home. And the fact is, we lost. And you know what? I'm going to eat my humble pie. I'm going to recognize that my credibility is in question because I've told you that if you vote for this person, it's going to be a threat to democracy, a threat to world peace, a threat to our economy. It's going to be a threat to all the things that he just laid out there. And the fact is, you're either not listening or you don't believe me, or I've repelled anybody in this audience other than the true believers who already agree with me. So if that's all that's left, you know what? You already know how I feel. Let's move on. Let's talk about something else. Let's change the subject. Let's turn the page on all of that. And I'm going to get back to my roots, which is about entertaining, being funny, and having conversations here on this talk show that have to do with everything other than politics. And maybe we'll get our audience back. Wouldn't that have been great if he had done that? He didn't. And nor will he. He's too drunk with power. He's intoxicated by the idea that he's important and that he has important things to say. Because the fact of the matter is, when Jimmy Kimmel goes home at night and looks himself in the mirror and counts all the money he's made, and I don't doubt he's made a lot of money, he still has to look in the mirror and recognize that his life is pretty shallow, that his entire job is to put together a 1-hour taped broadcast that's seen at 11 o'clock at 11:30 at night that really just amounts to him telling jokes and having stupid conversations with Hollywood actors. And so he says to himself, I have to do something important and relevant. And he doesn't have God in his life, and he doesn't have any strong religious faith and values, because most of us who are pretty unsatisfied with our jobs at any given time in our careers and feel like we're not doing something important, well, we say to ourselves, yeah, well, my job isn't supposed to be about doing something important. My job is about making sure that my family has security and there's food on the table and I can provide for my wife and my children. My job is just a means to that end. Then I do something important. The important thing I do is to serve my family and serve my wife and serve my Lord. The important thing I'll do every day is what happens when I leave work and I actually make a difference in this society. But Jimmy, no, he thinks his work has to be important and he knows it's not. And so now he's going to inflict his own the sense of self-importance on the rest of us because he thinks that that is going to make a difference. And now he has to realize that it doesn't. I almost feel sorry for him, except for the fact that after watching him for the last several years, I know that he hates my guts and he has prejudged me and he thinks I'm the worst person in this country because of what I believe and how I vote. So I don't feel sorry for him. I do feel sorry for his audience. If you found yourself watching Jimmy Kimmel last night and you were repelled by him breaking down literally in tears in front of you because Kamala Harris is not going to be the next president, maybe you turned the channel. Maybe you threw it over to CBS. Let's see what they're doing over there. Come on, Stephen Colbert. Make me laugh, please. Give us some jokes.
Hey there. How are you doing? If you watch the show regularly, I'm guessing you're not doing great. Yeah, me neither. Because especially at times like this, what do we most want to be? Not alone. So thanks for being here. We're going to do a comedy show. It's a comedy show. We're going to do some jokes. No one gets into this business because everything in their life worked out great. So we're built for rough roads.
Honestly, I want to send him a bill for this therapy session. I feel like I'm helping him through a tough time by sitting and watching this. God. I mean, at least he showed some grace in recognizing that he has gratitude to be able to do what he does and gratitude for all the people around him who get to do it. Although if he's really grateful for their jobs, he would probably actually change the way he approaches his profession so they can all keep their jobs. Because if this keeps up, they're all going to be out of business. Honestly, it's a lot cheaper to just, have AI write jokes and get some sort of animated host to host a show. Wouldn't cost CBS nearly as much. My favorite part of this, though, is the admission at the very beginning. Let's watch it together again.
You guys ready? Hey there. How are you doing? If you watch the show regularly, I'm guessing you're not doing great.
That's my favorite part. If you are a regular viewer, you are upset too because Donald Trump won the election. He's admitting to all of us that he knows that anyone who thinks differently than him politically has already left. They've left the room. They don't watch anymore. And he seems just fine with that. You know, in any other business, and this is a business, this is show business. Any other business, you would think that the owner, you know, the ones who are interested in making money and building a large consumer base, customers who will come back for the product on a daily basis, any other business would look at this and say, why are we celebrating the fact that we are repelling over half of the country and telling them that they're not welcome here? That's not what, you know, this is called broadcasting, not narrowcasting, broadcasting. And yet this guy sits there sitting on, you know, what's he making? 8 figures a year for some pretty light lifting in his job. And he's bragging about the fact that he willfully has repelled half of the country simply because of who they vote for. But it's comedy, everybody. It's comedy. All right, so let's say you're not in the mood for that struggle session either. You're not in the mood to sit there and sort of hold Stephen Colbert's hand so that he can get through this really rough time he's going through. So you say, you know what, listen, if I need this kind of crap, I'm not going to watch a late night comedy show. Well, I'll go over to the news. Let's see what's happening on the news, right? Because all they want to talk about is politics. I'll go to the experts on cable news and have them talk about the presidential election instead of some comedian. So you switch over to MSNBC and you say, all right, guys, go ahead. Let me have it. What's the latest with Kamala Harris and her concession speech?
I mean, in that mission and that purpose, Claire McCaskill will determine. You okay?
I think I'm okay.
Tell me what you're thinking.
Well, I'm so proud. I'm so proud of her. I don't think people realize how hard it is to get to where she was. As a woman, getting elected DA, it's not easy, guys. People don't trust women to be in charge of making decisions about life and death and crime and being, frankly, a supervisor in some ways over police. Her fighting through the primary thicket of California politics to become Attorney General, really hard. I mean, this is really hard stuff. For her to be selected as vice president after what I think she would tell you was a very disappointing presidential race, where I think she kind of lost her footing and was listening too much to consultants, frankly, and it didn't really exude who she was. And then to be vice president and to step into the most difficult situation in the world, where she had to be completely loyal to Joe Biden and respectful of the fact that he had chosen her, but yet maneuver in a situation. I mean, such political skill. It is just inspiring. People who don't understand what she had to do to get to this moment. Mm-hmm. And so I'm just very proud of her.
Howman, I don't want to.
I love that even Nicole Wallace is like, well, this is awkward. We're a news show. Why is everybody crying at me? Why is everyone on my television crying? This is when you wear politics as the be all and end all in your life. Guys, listen, I am passionate about my politics. I am passionate about my beliefs and my principles and my values. But see, here's what's really interesting about what you just saw with Claire McCaskill, former senator of Missouri. Not one tear that was just shed on that television right there had anything to do with you or me or the American people or people struggling in this country because of the economy or because they're worried about their children in the military and the feckless nature of the way this administration has treated their lives for their own political ends. Not one tear shed. You know what? Even if she were crying for the supporters of Kamala Harris, you know, I'm feeling emotional because there were so many people who were invested in this campaign and they donated so much money to help Kamala Harris, and now they're feeling lost. You know, no, she's crying for a politician. Guys, don't ever cry for a politician. Even the politicians I like, if they lose, I'm not going to cry on their behalf. And if I do get emotional about it, and I tend to get emotional sometimes, Meredith always says that I'm a level 10 feeler. I do. I cry at movies. I cry at weddings. I do. But I'm not going to turn on the camera and cry for you. And if my job is to sit there and be seen on television to deliver news and analysis, that's not going to happen. It's just weird. And specifically to Claire McCaskill real fast, because she was super duper busy yesterday. In the morning before she was crying there, as you just saw, she was sitting on the set with Morning Joe. And before we let her off the hook and feel sorry for Claire McCaskill, can we just remind you exactly how she started her day talking about the American people?
Claire McCaskill, your thoughts this morning?
Well, first, I think we have to acknowledge that Donald Trump knows our country better than we do. I think he figured out that anger and, frankly, fear were way more powerful than appealing to people's better angels.
Yeah, she started out so strong there. Donald Trump understands the American people better than we do. And then she tagged it up with, because he knows that the American people are racist and sexist and respond to fear tactics. Yeah. You know what? I'm glad I got to see you cry. Cry more, Claire McCaskill, if that's really how you feel about the American people. And it is, by the way. It is moments like this where they do the Tom Cruise rubber mask thing in Mission Impossible and we see who's really under there. That's exactly how Claire McCaskill thinks about us. In fact, my buddy, Chris DeGaulle, radio talk show host, he lives in Missouri. He knows Claire McCaskill. And he said, I once knew this woman. She was kind, moderately partisan Democrat who still joked and enjoyed everyone. Washington and New York have changed her. Missourians fired her long ago for it, but she fancies herself a media maven now who doesn't care to pretend she likes the people she left behind in the Midwest. It's sad. It's sad, but it's revealing. It's funny how an election can really sort of be clarifying, isn't it? And it shows you exactly who people are. Please don't invest any more time in any of these people anymore. Nothing changes until you send that message. I would love for late night comedy to be funny again. I would love news shows to be about news again. That'll only happen when they recognize they've lost you forever as long as they keep doing what they're doing. So we just voted and changed the world earlier this week at the ballot box. Now vote again with the way you choose to consume your media.